The Greek rule in Bactria came to an end around 130 BC because of certain political developments not located exactly in Bactria nor in the Indian subcontinent, but political developments happening in a faraway place, the steppe lands of Central Asia. The Chinese texts and partly some Greek accounts indicate that the vast steppe areas of Central Asia were inhabited by a number of fierce, warlike, nomadic groups, among whom we must mention the Xiongnu of the Chinese texts, that is the dreaded Huners or Huns in the later period, the Scythians or the Shakas in Indian history, and later, perhaps the most important of them, the Yuezhi or the Ta Yuezhi, the mighty Kushanas. These nomadic groups proved often like a menace to the Han polity in China and also to the Bactrian rulers in the Afghanistan region. That is why the Chinese and the Greek texts spoke about them. Around 130 BC, the Scythians, possibly along with the Yuezhi people, swooped down upon Bactria and ended the Greek presence there. This is the beginning of the gradual push of the Scythians or the Shakas from the northwestern borderland of the subcontinent, from Bactria, then gradually into the northwestern frontiers of the subcontinent and other parts of India. The story is largely known through the study of some Greek texts, some inscriptions and varieties of coins. The Shaka rulers in India, they first possibly captured the region of Bactria, unseating the Bactrian Greeks, then possibly came to Kabul, from Kabul to the region of Peshawar, from Peshawar into Taxila, from Taxila into the plains of western Punjab. The other possibility of their entry to the mainland of the subcontinent is available from the Chinese accounts, which suggests that the Scythians entered the subcontinent through the Chipin or Jibin route. Chipin or Jibin stands for the northern part of Kashmir, and from Central Asian steppe areas they came straight south down through the northern part of Kashmir. This was a relatively shorter route, the Chipin route, and then entered the subcontinent. There were several groups of Shaka rulers, mainly in the northwestern part of the subcontinent, and we find rulers like Mawes. A group of rulers belonging to the family of Mawes and his relatives was in occupation of Gandhara region around 92 BC. Mawes and his subordinate ruler Patika was in the region of Swat around this time. More or less contemporary to Mawes and his group of rulers was another parallel group called the Vonones group of rulers. Their rule began with the ruler called Vonones, and there were later rulers like Spalagadama, Spalahora. The names very clearly indicate that these were non-Indian in origin and possibly of Iranian extraction. The Vonones group of rulers were located essentially in Arachosia, that is the region of Kandahar, from where they occasionally entered into the western part of the subcontinent. There were a third group of rulers. In this group, there were three very prominent rulers: Agis the first, Asilysis, and then Agis the second. They are largely known from inscriptions. What is very significant, that the study of a recently discovered inscription of Agis the first has led B. N. Mukherjee to suggest that Agis the first established an era, that is a regnal reckoning, which is a marker of the political prominence of a ruler, in and around 57 BC. Now, in Indian tradition, the era starting around 57-58 BC is associated with the name of Vikramaditya. This era is called Vikrama era. The significant point here is, in the light of this recently discovered inscription, the person, the ruler who initiated the era of 57 BC is not a Vikramaditya in Indian tradition, but a Shaka ruler, Agis the first. Later, the legend of Vikramaditya got associated with this era, and now it is known as Vikram era. But this is the political contribution of a Shaka ruler in Indian cultural history and the method of counting dates. Now, Agis the first, Asilysis, and then Agis the second were definitely in possession of Taxila region, Gandhara, western Punjab, but more significantly, they were possibly in occupation of the Indo-Ganga divide and also the Ganga-Jamuna Doab. We find two important administrators, subordinate rulers named Sodasha and Rajuvula. In the first quarter of the 1st century AD, they assumed the title Kshatrapa and ruled from Mathura. They are known from inscriptions. As many as 4 inscriptions have come from Mathura region to indicate the presence of these Kshatrapa or subordinate rulers. Now, these subordinate rulers were apparently serving their overlords, which in this case are the line of Agis group of rulers, Agis the first, Asilysis, and Agis the second. These rulers were apparently ruling in the first half, particularly first and second quarter of the 1st century AD. This is the position of the Shakas' power in different parts of northwestern India. There is another branch of the Shaka rulers who flourished slightly later in the context of western India, Gujarat, western Malwa, about whom we shall speak later. The mightiest of the non-indigenous powers that came to be associated with India's political history of this phase are the Kushanas. We have already said that in the Chinese annals of the Han dynasty, they were known as the Yuezhi. If we take a little look at the development of the very early phase of the Yuezhi history, they were located originally in the Lake Isikul area in Central Asia. They were attacked by the fierce Xiongnu group, who would be known later as the Huns. Now, driven out by the Xiongnu from their usual habitat around Lake Isikul, the Yuezhis group dispersed towards the west and reached the region of Bactria, where we have already said they possibly played a role in unseating the Greek rulers' presence along with the role of the Shakas. By another 50 years, the nomadic, warlike, fierce group of the Yuezhi became divided into 5 Yabgus or clans. According to the Chinese texts, once again of the Han dynasty, one of the Yabgus or the clans was known as Gui Shuang or Kui Shuang. It is from this clan name Gui Shuang emerged later the celebrated Kushanas. The story of the Kushanas has therefore 2 points. The Kushanas essentially are Central Asiatic people in origin who left a very deep impact in the history of South Asia. Second, the story of the rise of the Kushana power is actually a story of how the Kushanas transformed from a nomadic warrior group to an empire, a settled territorial polity. The most significant key to understanding this transformation is their rise from Bactria. Already in the early history of the Kui Shuang or Gui Shuang Yabgu clan, we find that they captured and settled down at the place called Dacia or Tasia, which indicates the eastern part of Bactria, which is capital at Puta or Buta, that is Bactra, Mazar-e-Sharif. Now this is the principal stronghold of the entire Kushana history. Bactria, with its capital at Bactra, present-day Mazar-e-Sharif, is the most important area of the Kushana polity and in fact the launching pad of the fascinating expansion of Kushana political and military power. The earliest known Kushana ruler was Miaos, who is known from coins. He issued coins. What is very significant is from the very beginning, the Kushanas expanded their authority to the north of the river Oxus, as B.N. Mukherjee's classic study of the Kushanas in his book The Rise and Fall of the Kushana Empire narrates to us. The Kushana rule began to take its root not only in Bactria but then in the neighboring regions of Afghanistan and the northwestern borderland of the subcontinent during the time of a very powerful king named Kujula Kadphises. Now Kujula Kadphises used coins in which he appears also as Kujula Karakafa, the term Kara indicating that he was a lord or a king, an early ruler, and according to the Chinese text, from Bactria he conquered the region of Kaufu or Kabul, which brought him in fact closer to the borderland of the subcontinent, and Kaufu or Kabul was a very prominent center of long distance commerce. The next step was in the form of another very powerful ruler, Vimo Kadphises. Vimo Kadphises is credited with the conquest of Sachi or Saketa, according to the Chinese annals. The same Chinese text, Hou Han Shu, credits him with the conquest of Shendu, that is the lower Indus Valley. Obviously the name Shendu is derived from the famous river Sindhu or the Indus. At this area stood a very major port for long distance trade, Barbaricum. The Chinese texts indicate that with the conquest of Shendu, the Yuezhis began to derive enormous advantage by trade with the Roman Empire. B.N. Mukherjee very ably demonstrates how economic factors, particularly deriving advantage out of long distance trade, prompted the Kushana king to push his military campaign from the northwestern borderland area to the Indus Delta and the lower Indus Valley. That Vimak Phasis was also in occupation of Mathura is indicated by his inscription and a magnificent seated image of this ruler in full regalia and glory found from Mathura itself. Now this is an important point. From now on, the most important political center of the Kushanas within the subcontinent would be Mathura for years to come. If Bactria and Bactra was the most important territorial segment of the vast Kushana realm, then the apex political center of the Kushanas within the subcontinent was definitely Mathura. And Vimak Phasis is the ruler in establishing Kushana hold for a very long time over Mathura. He is the first ruler to do so. To Vimak Phasis also goes the credit of issuing for the first time in South Asian history gold coins. And with this we can definitely place him in terms of chronological position. His coins were based on the imperial Parthian ruler Gotarses I's coins, and Gotarses was ruling around 71 BC to about 58 BC. So Vimak Phasis must have also ruled more or less at the same time, that is in the second half, particularly the first quarter of the second half of the 1st century AD. Now already the Kushana power is enlarging. From its base in Bactria, they have conquered Kabul, they have definitely conquered the area of Arachosia or Kandahar by removing the Indo-Parthian ruler Gondophares from that area, and from Taxila region onwards, the Kushanas have entered into the plains of Punjab and now into the Ganga Yamuna Doab area, that is up to Mathura. The stage was set now ready for the maximum expansion of the Kushana rule during the time of Kanishka, the greatest of the Kushana rulers. Kanishka is known to us by a very large number of inscriptions, variety of coins, and through his statues. The interesting point is he ruled at least for 23 years. This is known from the use of his regnal years in his inscription. What is even more significant is the fact that Kanishka's regnal reckonings were continued without any interruption by his successors, the successors being Vashishka, Huvishka, Kanishka II, Vasudeva I, Kanishka III, Vasudeva II. That means, in terms of political history, Kanishka established an era possibly marking the beginning of his reign. Now here is an acute problem of ancient Indian history. What is the actual date of beginning of Kanishka's reign? This is a very major controversy. Several international conferences and large number of publications on this issue have yet to resolve the problem, what is the beginning of Kanishka's rule. Various theories of chronology have been proposed by very major scholars, and the controversies are yet going on. Several dates have been proposed. It could be 128 AD, it could be 144 AD, However, a very large number of scholars, particularly Kushana specialists in the subcontinent, would prefer to associate Kanishka's beginning of Kanishka's reign with the establishment of Saka era that began in AD 78. In very recent times, a brand new inscription has considerably changed our understanding of Kanishka's rule. From Rabatak in Afghanistan near Pulikhumri came out an inscription in Bactrian language. This Bactrian language means it's a Middle Iranian language written in Greek script. This became, from the time of Kanishka, the official language of the Kushana Empire, because all the Kushana coins from now on would be inscribed only in Bactrian language. The name Bactrian language was coined by a famous scholar, W.B. Henning. Now this inscription from Rabatak, dated in the year 1, the very first year of Kanishka's reign, suggests two things. One, there is an unbroken chain of succession from Kujula Cadphises, Bhima Cadphises to Kanishka. This negates the earlier long-standing theory that there were two groups of rulers, the Cadphises group of rulers and the Kanishka group of rulers. No such division or break in the genealogy of the Kushanas now exists in the light of this inscription. There's an unbroken continuity of succession from Kujula Cadphises, Bhima Cadphises, then Kanishka. The more significant point is, even in the very first year of his reign, Kanishka's reign is recognized over these areas. Ozono, that is Ujjaini in western Malwa. Kozombo, that is Kaushambi near Allahabad. Zagido, that is Saketa near Ayodhya. Then Palibotro, very clearly Pataliputra. And then Zroshompo, this last name, Zroshompo, Zrochompo, stand for Sri Champa, that is near Bhagalpur, the easternmost part of Bihar. So just we have to imagine what a huge territory Kanishka was controlling even at the beginning of his reign, stretching from Bactria, Kabul, Kandahar, and then the lower Indus Valley, then definitely Mathura, but more interestingly to the east of Mathura, the region around Kaushambi in Allahabad, Pataliputra in Bihar, and the easternmost part of Bihar, that is Champa or Bhagalpur. That he was also ruling over Ujjaini in western Malwa is very clear. His rule in the eastern Malwa region, that is Sanchi, is also known from his inscriptions dated between year 22. Then he was ruling along with his son Vashishka in this area. His rule over the northwestern part of the subcontinent is also known from several inscriptions. I am not going into the details, and very clearly his rule in Afghanistan area is undoubtedly proved by the Rabatak inscription and also from the inscription at Surkotal, also in the same area of Afghanistan. Kanishka appears to have been in occupation over the Pamir region and also the region of Khotan in Central Asia, as the Chinese chronicles would tell us. Now this is the maximum expanse of the Kushana territory, a really multi-ethnic, almost international empire. This is one of the four great powers in contemporary Asia and Eurasia. In East Asia, the imperial Huns were at the zenith of the power. In West Asia, the Arsacids or the imperial Parthians, very formidable power. In South Asia, greater parts of it, North India, along with the northwestern borderland, firmly under the Kanishka the Kushana ruler. And in Eurasia, particularly the region of Syria, Jordan, and then in northeastern Africa, Egypt, eastern Mediterranean, the existence of the Roman Empire. The Kushana Empire is to be placed in that context. We do not know how long the Kushanas were able to keep hold intact on the regions to the east of Mathura. It is unlikely that Kanishka's successors were able to retain their political hold over areas to the east of Mathura. Kanishka definitely controlled the region of Varanasi and Kaushambi, from where his inscriptions have come. And we have already indicated that his authority extended beyond Varanasi, that is up to Pataliputra and even up to Sri Champa or Bhagalpur region. These parts possibly were lost soon after Kanishka's reign during the time of his successors. But his successors were definitely able to retain their hold till the very last of the Kushana rule over Mathura. Mathura's position remained under firm control of the Kushanas throughout the entire Kushana history. One of the very powerful Kushana rulers was Huvishka, who had a very long reign from the year 28 of the Kushana era to year 60 of the Kanishka era. Similarly, the next ruler, Vasudeva, also had a very long rule from year 60 to year 98. All these bring us to the middle of the 2nd century AD. The one point needs to be stated here. Bactria holds the key to the understanding of the Kushana rise and fall of the Kushanas. Earlier, Indian scholars knew that the Kushana were Central Asiatic people. They thought that Kushana became Indianized and then they expanded from India outside the borderland of India. The story is now reversed thanks to major researches by Kushana experts like B. N. Mukherjee, like Gerard Fussman, to name only a few stalwarts, where it is essentially the power over Bactria, and from there the Kushana rule spreads to different parts of the subcontinent. The Kushana rule came to an end around 262 AD when the Sassanid ruler Shapur I conquered Kushan Sheher, that is the Kushana realm. The last Kushana ruler was possibly Vasudeva II, who ruled from 230 to 262. This is the end of the Kushana rule around the middle of the 3rd century AD.